Good morning, afternoon, or night, and welcome to Collider Dailies. I'm John Algetz, and joining me this time is...
Maggie Lovett.
How are you doing this morning, Maggie?
I am doing wonderful. I am so excited for today's episode.
Well, I mean, I would expect you to be super excited because today we are talking to Tim Downey, Gale of Waterdeep himself. He's joining us to talk about, obviously, Baldur's Gate, but we are going to touch upon the craft of acting as well as a few small things here or there about some other stuff that he's done. So, you know, sit back, relax, enjoy this extra long interview. I think we got him for about 40 minutes, which is pretty awesome. And we'll talk a little bit after that, so stick around. Hey, so how are you doing today?
Very well, very good. It's very drizzly, a little stormy over here, but all is well. Apart from that, we're good. How are you guys?
Very good.
You know,
It's rainy here as well, so very similar.
There you go, you see. It's all happening.
Yes.
So you have a pretty large role in a game that some people might have heard of. Maybe if they were, paying attention, or if they're in that circle, they might have heard of Baldur's Gate 3. Kind of a big deal. Definitely super popular with a lot of folks. And I just want to know, being a part of something that has exploded and has become such a big deal for so many people, how is that for you? Like, what has the experience been like?
It's just extraordinary. Like, I don't think any of us had any idea it would become what it's become. We assumed it would be big. We assumed it would not big, but just popular and, well received and things like that. But you never expect the level, the scale to which it has been received and taken to people's hearts and just kind of enjoyed and pored over. Like, people have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours playing this, which is just mind-boggling. My background is film and TV, unless it's some epic where it's like 3 hours in a cinema, that's kind of tops. That's kind of it. Or like a Lord of the Rings kind of, evening. That's kind of it. So for someone to come up to you and say, "Oh, I've spent 500 hours with Gale," you go, "Wow, I can't even begin to comprehend that." It's an extraordinary thing to be a part of, and to continue to be a part of as it kind of unravels itself.
Mm-hmm. I am one of those people who has spent 500 hours with Gale. I am really curious to know, like, going back before any of us really knew about Baldur's Gate 3, what was the audition process like for getting into Baldur's Gate?
Well, it was really simple. It was like a wet Tuesday in October. It was a real, just sort of, your agent rings you up and says, "Oh, there's a casting for this video game. We don't know much about it. We don't know what it's called. We don't really know what it's about, but you want to see the briefing." "Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds fun. Haven't done a game before. Yeah, okay. I'll be up for that." And then they send the briefing through and they film it a very specific way. So it's not just like a TV casting or a film casting where you just set your camera up and then do it. They want you to stand a certain way, which will be in, as I now know, which is in the base position for when they animate, for when you're doing the mocap. So you kind of have to stand kind of like, "Oh, right, so I do this. Okay, and now I deliver the line. Okay, this is all a bit strange. I've never really done this before." And then we had a small character breakdown. Apparently, the thing to recognize was Henry Cavill from the Tudors. So, okay, I can do that. I can do that. And yeah, and then literally I sent it off. I did it 2 or 3 times. I kind of played around with it. I kind of, you just kind of make very, stuff that interests you. You make decisions that interest you. You think, well, I would like something like this. And because I have no idea if it was a good or a right thing, you just think, okay, I'm going to throw it into the ether and just see what happens. I think this will be fun, like the way I'm doing it. They may have other ideas, who knows, as is the great eternal mystery of self-tapes and throwing them into the ether. You have no idea who's watching them or what they want. So yeah, and so I just did it, and then they rang up and they said, "Oh, that game? Yeah. Oh, you got the part. You're the part. You're a wizard." Like, "Oh, that's fun. That'll be fun." Any other details? No, that's about it. Okay, wizard, great. And then off you go, and that was 4 years ago. So quite a lot has quite a lot has changed. Pandemic for one thing in the middle of it as well. So,
and with working in a game like this that is so like there's a basic story that it follows, but it branches in so many different possibilities, so many different ways that it's largely a non-linear experience. How does that affect your process for creating and kind of crafting the character of Gale as opposed to some of your like television or film roles?
Well, in the beginning, because in the beginning you literally start at the beginning, then it gave us a chance, or it gave me a chance to sort of just play around with bits and pieces, kind of think, okay, well, it might be a bit like this, might be a bit like that. Okay, that's quite interesting. Not having any idea what a wizard in a game does, I think it kind of gave me maybe an edge of a freedom to kind of think, okay, well, I'll just do this as if it is an acting exercise. I will make it as real as I possibly can because I don't know any other way. I'll just try and do it that way and see if that sticks, see if that's a good thing. And yes, there's certain technicalities you have to remember and know, and that's the craft of mocap and game acting, which I was like, oh, okay, yep, noted. Yep, that's an interesting, gotcha. Okay, I'll do that. But yes, and then so then it was those very, very early days. You begin to kind of craft and feel and get a sense of the writing and kind of think, okay, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that. But then when you really get into it and it starts to kind of splinter off, that becomes that's a whole other beast. Because, I mean, you do find your head just exploding by saying, right, you're going to do some sort of romantic scene now. And now there's, it's horrible. It's a bloodbath. There's bits of bodies everywhere. You know most of them. So we're going to do that bit now. And you think, how do I get my head from that to that? That's quite bizarre. So that was quite a learning curve. I don't know if you ever get used to that, but that was definitely something. But then I retreated to sort of like being a 5-year-old in a wood with a stick as a sword, and sort of, you know, your friends are hiding and they're ogres. You know, you retreat into your own head to picture these things because you are just in a blank room with a suit of dots and lights, and sometimes you hear the lines, sometimes you don't hear the lines. So you have to find it somewhere within you to pick out, how do I play this? Okay, you're in this, you know, there's a big monster in front of you with tentacles and it's trying to attack this thing, and you're battle weary and you're from this and this is happening and all around is like destruction, and go. And the only way I could really do that is think, right, well, as a kid, I would do that. So I have to retreat back and find, because I believed it. You know, when you're 5, you believe it. You completely believe it. It's as simple as that. You're on the Death Star. Yes, I completely believe I'm on the Death Star, even though I'm in my living room or a bath. Yes, I'm on the Death Star. So you have to, find that, which was great fun. You know, it gave you that enormous sense of play. And then it gave you an, opportunity to sort of throw some curveballs in. So how you would say a line or how you would approach something. You think, well, no, I'd probably do it like that. Just see if you like it. Great. But,
I'm curious, for you as an actor, what was your like prep for Gale like? Like, I know in my own experience, I'm somebody who likes making playlists, creating journals as the character that I'm playing. But how did you kind of keep Gale fresh and new every time you played him and, created him across those 4 years?
I would just try to, a broad stroke is I would try to approach everything as if it were real and not supernatural or bigger than anything else like that. So hopefully I would try and get the minutiae right of how he would react in small circumstance or greet someone in a certain way. What's the backstory between this person? And if you didn't know the backstory, you go, okay, well, I feel it'd probably be a bit like this. And that's quite fun to play with. So it's finding the fun within it. Basically, it's approaching it, because it was so long, like you would in real life. Like I could walk up to you, I don't know you, but we then have a sort of game where we work out, okay, this is where we are and this is where we are. And I thought, well, if I kind of integrate those kind of stylistics into this, it's going to keep it fresh and interesting and create different ways of saying lines other than the usual way of saying, a greeting or a goodbye or a reaction to something that's horrendous. Those kinds of things just keep it interesting. And because I come from a comedy background, I firmly believe that not everything is melodramatic. You cannot live your life 24 hours a day, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, constantly being in a state of anxiety and stress. You will just explode. So you have to find the light moments in things, in everything. And in terrible moments, that's what we do as people. We will find lightness in the dark, and that's what gives us hope for. And I think within this, there are so many moments of darkness, but hopefully there's a great deal of hope. You kind of hope for something better, and that's what takes you on. So yeah, we try. I basically, it's like acting exercises that just try to, you kind of layer them, discard them, bring in new ones, play around with them, and just try and keep it on its toes as much as possible, because it is a marathon. It ain't no sprint doing something like this.
Now, I know that it was, obviously you were working on this for quite a while, so it might be a little bit hard for you to pick out one particular moment or day, but was there a particular scene or a particular day while you were working that stands out to you as something where you were like either particularly proud of what you were doing, or maybe it was just like a moment that you had a lot of fun with your performance? Anything like sticking out in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, there are both. There are moments when Gale becomes a hologram or a version of himself, and I just loved doing that, because I could kind of be quite subversive about how I react to people. And I had a whole thing. There was a lot of things of saying, the Tav is your friend, the player is your friend. And I was thinking, okay, well, for this moment, I dislike you. You're an idiot. I don't care who you are or what you think you've done. You are an idiot, and you're not worth my time. So I thought that's quite fun to then, having traveled all this way, the Gale has pre-recorded this thing where he just assumes you're an idiot and not quite up to the match. And then you will then sort of like, hello, I'm Gale of Waterdeep. It's that sort of, well, that's fascinating. Anyway, if we could and I just found that just brilliant. And the fact that they kind of gave me that reign and enjoyed it and kind of thought, okay, this is going to add to it rather than this is just ridiculous, please stop doing that, was just a joy. So whenever those bits came up, it was like, oh, fabulous. Let's do that. That sounds amazing. And there were some very difficult days dramatically as well. There was like, a death of a child and things like that within the game. And that was unbearably difficult, like so difficult. Like where do you go to get into that kind of mindset was very, very difficult. So they really stick out as well. So yeah, both the yin and the yang of the experience. And there's a host of other things where you just think, some of my favorite moments were the incidental moments, where the bits that probably you will never, ever, ever see in your life, unless you play this for like 4 years, are almost like the bits where you're waiting, where like Gale is just waiting. And then you'll have a line like, hurry up, or something like that. And you'll think, well, the chances of anybody here ever seeing this are very remote. So I enjoyed playing around with waiting bits.
I think one of your pieces of dialogue that has probably become like the most popular is the stop licking the damn thing.
Yes.
With the spider. Were there different line readings for that? Or was it always just that, like, I cannot believe I am traveling with somebody who is licking spider goo right now?
That was the first take, was that take that they used.
Wow. It's
and
perfect.
Because I went for it, because I just thought to myself, well, if you're traveling with someone, again, it goes back to those kind of trying to play it for a reality. If you're playing with someone, they've annoyed you anyway. They've probably done stuff that is just going to wind you up. Like, I'm a wizard, right? Whatever you are, I'm slightly better than I've got more. I know more things. I can speak more languages. So I'll take you on here. So if someone starts licking a spider, you think, your whole exasperation, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You would really kind of, rather than just say, stop licking the damn thing, you would go, stop licking the damn, like, what's wrong with you? And I just thought, well, I'll do it like, that was my first instinct, was to do it like that, rather than sort of softer and more sort of measured and more weighty of a wizard. No, I think it would just be really, but I like those little peaks, which make them human, rather than just being, I'm magical, I'm like an entity, a completely different being. This is something that hopefully you go, yeah, I get that. Yeah. So I know someone that would do that. And I know I would react like that. And I think that's what hopefully draws you into a character and makes you want to then travel with that person. Hopefully.
Yes.
So when the game first got its full release, it came out of early access and everybody was able to play it and everyone was having a good time with it. People noted that Gale seemed to be particularly easy to romance, almost to the point
ill,
of...
John. I was ill. I was ill. All right.
Almost to the point of people
line.
accidentally romancing him. But it kind of makes me curious of the actual romance moments. How was that experience doing the romance scenes with, you know, a character who doesn't speak back?
Well, that would be interesting in and of itself. And then if you then put into the equation that you're on your own and you're doing these, that throws in a whole other thing with just like a wall of people, adults looking at you saying, I'm really sorry, we're going to have to do this now. And you're like, okay, all right, okay, let's do this. And I didn't really know there was this kind of romance aspect to the game. I didn't, unless probably somebody said it and I went, yeah, I'm sure that's fine. And just didn't really pay attention. And then suddenly, you know, you're in a boat in the weave and all of that kind of, you go, oh, right, okay, this is quite something. And that particular scene, we had to do 4 times for some unknown reason. I don't know if it was a dialogue change. I don't know if it was just, could you do it better, Tim? Or a whole host of other things. I do not know. But yeah, it was quite something. But again, you go into your head and you find those moments, those teenage moments. You find all those little bits and try and give them the reality, give them the awkwardness, give them those difficult, beautiful moments where you're trying to say something but you can't, but you want to, and they, you know, you bring them all up again, which is kind of in some respects a very pleasurable experience. In other respects, I don't want to go there again. I've done that. No need to go there again.
Something you brought up earlier, you talked about your background in comedy and how you brought a lot of that into Gale. I've noticed that a lot of the different actors behind the characters have brought little things that are like uniquely them. Would you say it's the comedy aspect that is uniquely Tim that you brought to Gale, or were there other little aspects, little nuances that you brought that were very like unique to you?
It's you know what, it's very difficult to say apart from the comedy, which I do think is something that I think they then after a while the writers must have seen, oh, okay, he's going like this, and therefore they upped it, and therefore they begin to write for you and your rhythm, how you say a line, how you approach a character, and all those aspects. But that's fabulous writing, that's working as a team, that's exactly what you want. But I think it is definitely the comedy. There are other aspects of the whole thing where you go, wow, that's terrifying. Like the first time I ever saw it animated, where you go, oh, okay, this will be quite good. And in my head, because I'm not a gamer, in my head, it was like watching like Paperboy, still very pixelated, kind of like, hello, kind of characters, rather than you watch it and go, oh my God, that you got my eye thing. Or he'll go up and it will appear and you go, oh my God, that's unbelievable. So it was actually more than the comedy aspect. It was the little ticks and nuances you do with a hand or that, which I found amazing, just what it picks up and then that was extraordinary. But I think the comedy was the thing. I also realized there's a lot of similarities between me and Gale anyway, just by absolute chance, just fluke of the whole thing. But I think being a slightly humorous wizard is quite fun.
Yes, I was going to say, like, did you do your audition in front of your bookshelves? Because your books are so very Gale, which is like so funny.
No, I did it because it was the only place we could get reception. I did it in my daughter's bedroom upstairs, which is like by a wardrobe with dolls in front of it. I mean, it was like the least Gale thing you've ever seen in your life, and probably like a pile of clothes behind me that needed to do laundry. It was very sort of, all right, I'll try and, but there's only so much, because they want it wide. You then go, well, you're going to have to see the room. Unlike other things where you go, okay, well, we can frame this. As soon as they say, as we all know, can we get a full body shot? You think, no, you can't, because if you do, you're going to see You're going to see absolutely everything, and I don't know if I'm prepared for that. You know exactly that. How do I do this? Do I pan out? What do I do? So that didn't even feature, and I didn't really kind of make the connections to Gale. Really, it was only, to be honest with you, it's only quite recently that I thought, oh, actually, I am quite similar to Gale. That's quite interesting. I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, you're right. I do have a lot of books, but. You know.
So you mentioned Larian's writers and them kind of like shifting a little bit of what they were doing because of what you were doing. And I know when we spoke to Neil Newbon, he specifically talked about working with them on some stuff for Astarion. But what sort of experience did you have working with their writers? And was it a collaborative relationship with you two, or was it more them kind of giving you pages and you making tweaks, or what was it like?
There were no, well, from my point of view anyway, there were no tweaks. It was kind of everything there is as written. So there was no impro, there was nothing like that. And it wasn't as collaborative as Neil's. Like, I didn't have a conversation with the writers. It was just, I assume probably quite a simpatico thing that, once someone kind of gets a tone and a rhythm of what you're doing, then they write for that, which was great. I actually only met my writer the other day, who came up and introduced herself to me. I was like, oh my god, well thank you. Fanboying myself. Oh wow, you're amazing, thank you. So that was that was a lot. I didn't even know I could have a conversation. I'm so used to sort of like, as an actor, you're given pages. Can I change this? No. Okay, that's fine. We'll keep the in. That's fine. I was going to move it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That you just kind of take it and you think, okay, this is, the character, especially in the beginning, the character, I don't. And then as it kind of drifts on, you can make broader things again. Gale wouldn't say it like that. He may say the line, but he wouldn't say it like that. He would probably say it like this. And that's probably the only thing, the input into how it would be done from my point of view, and then that collaboration. So, I mean, the writing was brilliant. So you just think, okay, well, I'll just put the character on top and it will just find its way through. Like, there's no need really to change anything, or, it was good.
I know at the top of the episode, we talked a little bit about like just how big Baldur's Gate 3 has been with fans. And you recently joined TikTok, and you're seeing the full breadth of the good, the bad, the really extreme, the like really passionate reactions from fans. But for you, like, what has it been like to just see the reaction, like the fan reaction, the passion behind playing this game, and like their love for Gale? Because there is a very large swath of people who very much love Gale.
There is, and it absolutely takes me by surprise. It really, really does. I suppose it's also that there's a thing. Obviously, when you make a TV program or a film, you go somewhere, you work with other actors, but it's finished, it's done, it's kind of complete, and then you can forget about it for about three or 4 months, and then suddenly it'll come up and go, oh, there it is on TV, or there it is there. And gaming is very different because there's a lot more of a relationship between gamers and makers and designers. So during that whole early access thing, they were learning things and we were learning things, and suddenly things begin to kind of shift and move. So it's a very organic piece of art, which this was all completely new to me. So then if you take that idea and then you put it into where we are now, it's quite like, wow, okay. But it's immersive. It's not like passive. It's not like watching a film where you'll sit and you'll watch De Niro for 2 or 3 hours and go, God, that's extraordinary. That's amazing. Or whoever, or any actor. This is, you spend time with the character. You can drift off. That character can tell you stories, can let you into little parts of their life that if you're passively watching something you don't have. So the relationship with the people that have played this game is very different, but I'm learning it as well, because it's like, oh wow, okay, that's really touched you. I didn't know that. That's amazing that you've got X, Y, Z from it. And and it's a constantly evolving process. People get different things from Gale. They get the kind of things that are kind of upfront, but they get nuance and subtleties, and they get all kinds of little bits and pieces. Some bits you go, I didn't realize I did that, and other bits you go, I'm really pleased you got that. That's great. That's really nice that that came across.
So one thing that I'm a little bit curious about to sort of build upon that is that obviously there's a lot of people out there who really, really love Gale. And then there's also people out there who are annoyed at the whole enchanted item eating aspect of his character.
They should just grow up and get over it.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
That's it. Next question, John. Next question.
Right there. You know what? You did actually fully get what I was going to ask. So.
Oh my gosh.
It's funny. No, it's funny. I found that whole thing about him eating shoes just hilarious, just very funny. I just think, there's so many things in this kind of business. The worst thing that I think any actor could ever hear is, "Oh, it was all right." No, it was okay. It's quite nice. You go, "What? I didn't provoke any reaction at all. That was as beige as it could possibly be." So if it provokes, that was the worst thing I've ever seen. I threw my TV and a child out of a window because it was so bad. That's a reaction. You go, "Okay, that's good. I've done something there," as well as it being, "Oh, thank you so much. It means everything, blah, blah, blah." But I just find it very funny. I would never have picked out that, a lust for shoes would have created such upset. But you live and you learn.
So
what can I say?
Yeah.
I guess I got to ask, like, how do you like your shoes to be prepared when you eat them? Like, do you want them sauteed, maybe broiled?
In my mind, it's always like a Charlie Chaplin sketch, like that knife, like little napkin, cutting it like that, trying to fold it around, like a Buster Keaton kind of things, like spaghetti with shoelaces, that kind of thing. That would thrill me.
I loved how quickly the fandom took on that, what was it, girl dinner meme, and it was Gale dinner. And it's just like a beautiful buffet of shoes. The reactions. Too much. But something I'm curious, we've talked quite a bit about like the lore, the little aspects of Baldur's Gate, but how familiar with Dungeons and Dragons were you when you got into this? And if you weren't, like, what kind of research did you do just so that you had that like background understanding of the world that your character was in?
Growing up, there was the cartoon of Dungeons and Dragons that was on in the UK. So as a 6-7-year-old, it was on like every lunchtime. You get home from school and it would be on, and you would just kind of watch it, and that was really interesting. And you go, "Oh, okay, this is quite fun. Quite like the fantasy of things." I've always been kind of into that thing, horror, fantasy, very lightly, not kind of full on. And then in the UK, there was a whole kind of like satanic panic. And during that satanic panic, Dungeons and Dragons was, so instantly I was like, "What's Dungeons and Dragons?" Because it seems like I'm not allowed it, but maybe I should look at it more. I don't know. That kind of thing. So that brought it up. So, but then that kind of drifts and then kind of dies away. And then obviously Stranger Things brought it all back to kind of go, "Oh, Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, that's interesting." And then this arrives. Now, I mean, I didn't know what the game was for 2 years. No one told me what it was. So I had no idea it was Dungeons and Dragons. I may have heard in a break room, "Oh, this was kind of based on Dungeons," and go, "Oh, okay." And that was kind of about it. But I think, to be honest, not knowing was really refreshing, because it's a monster. It's so big. It's so layered and so detailed that I almost think you would just get a migraine just trying to kind of fit yourself into that. So actually kind of not knowing and kind of presenting, "Well, actually, this is a wizard. I think this is a wizard." It's like that thing of going, that doesn't define you. It's not what defines me, being a wizard. I am a human, and I'm also a wizard. And I thought that was quite an interesting take to have on it, rather than being all kind of powerful Gandalf. You're just kind of an everyday guy. You just happen to be a wizard. And that's it. And I thought that was just a nice kind of place. That's a good place. He has every problem, has problems as everybody else does. Just happens to be a wizard.
So obviously this being set in like a fantasy setting like Dungeons and Dragons, there's a lot of peculiar names that things have, or odd words that need to be pronounced. How was having to deal with so many like weird names and odd words that aren't normal for most people to have to say on a daily basis?
That absolutely had its moments. And obviously being a wizard, you're then saying things in Latin, which then kind of brings up a whole other thing. I think I did a load of recordings of Latin spells, but then there's a difference because they didn't. Do you do it with a slightly Italian accent? No, because that sounds wrong. But then if you don't put certain inflections on certain things, like as a Brit, you're taught, if you're taught Latin, you're taught that you do it in an English accent anyway, and you just kind of, you hit certain letters harder than others. Well, obviously that's how Brits do it, but it's not necessarily how someone from Waterdeep who's a wizard would do it. So that, yeah, it really threw up a lot of problems. They would say, we're going to have a spell day. And you go, oh, really? Okay, right. And really have to concentrate. Because you also have to do the motions with whatever spell. You know, when it's fireball, it's easy. Fireball, fine. We'll do a hand motion. Lovely. Anything else gets a little bit more complicated. But then, yeah, you just want to go, please just say it's the necromancy of Fae. Great. I know that one. We can move on. The Myconids are attacking. Great. Move on. We can do these. It's, yeah, I think I've blocked out most of the others.
This is a question that might get too much into like how the pudding is made, but I am curious, like we keep getting hot fixes, we keep getting new patches that sometimes add dialogue into it. So is this all stuff that was all like already recorded over the 4 years, or are you all still being like brought in to like fix audio, fix dialogue, do little new things, or is this just all stuff that was already recorded?
I think a lot of this is sort of stuff that's already recorded. I think if they came up against something that was like, this is pretty bad, we need to really do it, then yeah, we would come back in and re-record. As it happens, we haven't done that yet. So I'm assuming this is all stuff they had, and then they're gonna, yeah, fit it all in. I don't know how that works at all. Again, that's a whole new thing. It's a whole new thing where you think, oh, I just thought that's it. You know, like you watch a Ray Harryhausen where the dinosaur kind of scratches its nose and then carries on. You think, oh, I just thought that was it then. Not that you go back and make it that the dinosaur doesn't scratch his nose. Yeah, that kind of thing.
So I guess like the big hypothetical question here would be, if in some future they were doing a Baldur's Gate 4, if they asked you to come back as Gale, would that be something that you would be interested in possibly doing more of?
Goes without saying, absolutely. I'll start tomorrow. What are you offering? That would, I mean, yeah, of course. It's been enormous fun to do, and something completely different to what you would usually do, and on a scale that I wasn't prepared for, and on a scale that it's been a really extraordinary journey. And also as an acting kind of exercise, it's been extraordinary because it's very much like mask work in how to tell a story where they don't necessarily see your face, because your face will be animated however the animator wants it to go or be. So that was a very interesting process, and it was been an enormous amount of fun as well. You know, you get to kind of conquer worlds and get to, you know, fly off nautiloids and do all kinds of ridiculous, brilliant, fun things. So yeah, I'd absolutely. I mean, if it carries on as the whole series has gone, this will be in about 25 years. So I'll still do it. Don't get me wrong. You can wheel me in and prop me up. I've seen what technology can do. So I'm very happy with that. I
feel like in that case, Gale will have a lot of extra dialogue about creaky knees, like when he fails his stealth checks.
I would demand it. Absolutely demand it. You've got to make that, yeah, front and center.
I do kind of want to see Old Man Gale. Like, I think that would be, of all the main cast, I think that Gale would probably be the most fun to visit as like an old, weary
Elminster
wizard.
type.
Yeah. I like to think of him like sitting on a porch shouting at youth, just being just annoyed at youth, their vigor and that kind of thing. I'm a magician, that kind of thing. I'm a wizard. No, you take that back. I know your father, that kind of thing. I'd love that.
Oh, I love that. I was going to ask, like, I know we've talked a little bit about like the branching, storytelling styles. So there's a lot of different paths people can take with Gale. And specifically with him, you have these kind of 3 definitive paths of he either kills himself at one of 2 points in the game, or if they just decide to blow him up at some point. Then you have the like happy ending where like he doesn't go after the crown. And then you have godhood, which also is not a great ending. But for you as an actor, like getting to play a character that has 3 different paths completely, was it like really cathartic to get to play out like 3 completely different storylines for the character? Because that's not something you get in movies or TV unless you're playing some sort of like time traveler that has multiple endings to his fate. But for you, like, what was that like?
Oh, it was great. I mean, there's certainly endings where you think, oh yeah, if I was doing this, I'd do that, even if it's completely and utterly non-beneficial to you whatsoever. You go, yeah, I'm absolutely doing that. That looks like fun. And then there's also the ending you think, no, I'm pleased for him. He gets that ending. I think that's a really good ending for him. He'd be happy with that. Having traveled so far, I think, that would be the best ending. That would be the ending I would choose. This will just be entertaining to see what happens. It's all of those scenarios. But it's all kind of part and parcel of, you get to a crossroads, like a Robert Frost poem. You kind of get to that crossroads and you think, wouldn't it be interesting if I went this way, this might happen. If I went that way, that might happen. If I went this, and that's really nice to then play out all those scenarios. But then we've been doing that throughout the entire game, is how the branches of dialogue. I mean, I have absolutely no idea how anyone writes these things. Like, I could barely keep a shopping list in my head, let alone a dialogue tree that stretches out and then interlocks with other characters. It's like mind-boggling. It's like coral. It's like trying to kind of unravel coral. It would just infuriate. I don't understand how their minds work that did that. I mean, that's black magic. It's as simple as that.
So something that I'm curious about, and I'm always curious when speaking to actors, sort of their own history and how they got into acting and why they decided to pursue acting, how old they were, things of that nature. What is sort of your story for getting into this line of work?
Can't do anything else, John. Can't do anything else. Useless at pretty much everything. This was all that was left. No, I mean, I think I just have I love telling stories, and I think there's nothing finer in this world when someone says, oh my God, let me tell you a story. Or, oh my God, you'll never guess what happened, here it is. And if they can do it well, if they can really tell that story well, that's one of the greatest joys, I think, in life, because it's so inclusive. It's so, you can't interject in a song. If you interject in a song, that person's annoyed. Like, no, this is my song, man. I wrote my song. You listen to my song. And again, it's quite passive. But again, with a story, you could be telling a story and someone could come on and going, how big was it? Well, it was like this. And it was like this. And you can embellish and it changes and it's very, very organic. And just the art of being able to hold an audience and tell them and fill them with wonder and magic and something that's other, the other world, the thing behind the veil, I find infinitely fascinating. It's why I'm still doing it. It's why you still go on. It's because the stories keep changing. The stories ebb and flow and they drift around and they are ephemeral and they are solid and they are all sorts of things. So that's why I love it. I think the reason I wanted to get into it is pretty much that. It's pretty much that. And I just thought, I cannot, and I've done it. I've done so many other real life jobs. And I just thought, I cannot do it. I can't do it. It would just destroy me. It would just eat me up if I didn't do something creative. Even if nobody listens, it kind of doesn't matter. It's just the process of doing something that is creative. It's one of the things in COVID is, even though nothing was happening, you suddenly felt this kind of like emptiness, like you were being like filled with darkness or something, but you were being hollowed out at the same time. So you have to kind of push that into something. And so at one point you just go, okay, I'm just going to have to see how this works. And also like a pathological desire to just ignore the absolute obvious. So many people tell you, please stop doing this now. You don't have any money. You have nowhere to live. All the classic actor tropes, but there's still that part of you that either is going to become, a cult leader or a serial killer that just keeps you just keeps you going. No. I'm just gonna. No. I'm sure I'm right. It's just round that corner. And I'm just gonna keep going. And I think when those two storm fronts meet, then then it's pretty. There is only one outcome, really. Well, there's a lot of other outcomes, but you hope that the outcome is, you pursue an artistic career in ways.
I was so glad the strike ended this week so that we could actually ask you about, for many reasons, I'm happy, not just because of the interview, but it's so exciting to be able to talk about things again. You got to be in Good Omens this year. What was that like? That show is just incredible.
Amazing. I am a massive Neil Gaiman fan. I have been for years. Love. There's a certain sort of English Britishness to his writing, which I just adore. Terry Pratchett is very, very similar. That idea of you're facing the worst thing you could be facing, but there's a traffic warden that's about to give your car a ticket. It's that level of Britishness. We go, no, you just wait there while I sort this out. Who the hell do you think? I love all that. So being able to work on something like Good Omens was a dream, and with an extraordinary cast as well. You just kind of look around and go, wow, I've really got to up my game here, because this is these are great people. These are people that I grew up with. These are people that I've admired for years as well. Everyone is there. Everyone is in the room, and you're there as well. And you go, oh, okay, right. I better make sure I'm all right today. But yeah, that was great fun. Incredible fun. So yeah.
So we are actually coming up on our time. So this is where we're going to have to leave it. So I guess the last thing that I have to ask you, Tim, is where can people find you on the internet? And do you have anything that you've got going on that you want to plug, you want to throw out there?
Well, I'm on TikTok. Why? I've no idea, but there I am discussing, books and stuff and all kinds of things. But yes, TikTok. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, still calling it Twitter. As well. I do a podcast as well called Folklands, which you can delve into. We've got a couple more episodes coming up quite soon. One at the end of this month. There's one out already. And then a few more before the end of the year. But yes, Folklands podcast. Download it, all those things.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Man, talking to him was so much fun. Maggie, how did you feel about that interview? How did it go to you?
I thought it was awesome. I'm so excited for all of the Gale girlies to get to watch it as well. It was just really good to hear him talk about the character, the process and all of the fun acting stuff that led him to this.
As a Gale girly yourself, do you
Yes.
feel like you got that? Do you feel satisfied?
Oh yeah,
with his answers and hearing about all that behind the scenes stuff?
Yes. And once again, 500 hours of playing Baldur's Gate 3, and it has been a real pleasure to talk to both Neil and Tim about the game over these last few weeks. So it's been fun to bring that to dailies.
I thought that I've played the game a lot, but I'm not anywhere near 500 hours. I'm at the 160, I think.
I have to admit, it's multiple different gameplays. It's not just one gameplay and I'm taking my sweet time with it. It's 10 different gameplays. So very different options.
Either way. So yes, that was our show today. I hope that you enjoyed it. Tomorrow will be a different pair of hosts, I assume. We don't know the schedule as of the recording of this, so we don't know who's up, but someone's going to be up, so you can tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. as usual, 10 a.m. Pacific as usual, and check out another episode of Collider Dailies. But until then, see you around.